I'm Nick, and this is the all-new Corsair Frame 5000. This is one of Corsair's new frame cases. It's kind of the bigger version of the Frame 4000 that we checked out. And this one is coming in at around about $199 US. Let's take a little bit of a closer look, and I want to kind of talk about why this type of frame case is probably better than other frame cases that we've seen out there. Let's jump in. Alrighty, here it is, the Corsair Frame 5000 DRS ARGB. This is the version of the case with the 4 included fans. As far as dimensions, the case is 556mm long, 250mm wide, and 542mm tall. All of the screws on the case are captive thumb screws, so to get inside, you want to loosen the captive thumb screws on both the front and the back panel, and to remove them is the same process. They have little clips, you just pop them, kind of tilt them on an angle, and then you can lift the panels up and then away from the case. The panels are different sizes, but the process is exactly the same. And the same goes for the top of the case too. The top panel has 2 captive thumb screws. You want to loosen those up, grab that Corsair strap, then slide it towards you, and then lift the panel up and then away from the case. To remove the front panel, put your fingers anywhere around the edge of the panel and you can pop out the 4 clips and then lift that panel up and then away from the case. There's optionally another removable panel on the inside of the case which you can remove to replace it with a bracket or a screen, but I'll talk more about this in a moment. Finally, there's another panel that covers the PSU. You can remove that panel, it is optional, but you'll notice that there is a plastic airflow guide on here. This is transparent. However, included is a black airflow guide just in case you wanted to black out whatever's in the bottom, and also a mesh filter for that as well. Speaking of filters, there is a dust filter that slides out from the bottom of the case towards the tempered glass side. There's also a dust filter on the rear side panel, and there's also a dust filter on the front of the case in front of the fans. For front I/O, there's a power button, which is a combined power light. There's also a combined headphone and microphone jack, 4 USB Type A ports, and a single USB Type C port. There's an RGB strip just above it as well for a bit of accent for lighting. As for case wiring, there's the Corsair RGB cable for the front lighting, which can be plugged into an older Corsair Link controller. There's 2 USB Type A cables, a USB Type C cable, the front panel audio cable, also the front panel cable for all the lights and all the switches, and a 3-pin 5V addressable RGB cable, which can be used in place of using that Corsair RGB cable. Inside of the case, you have quite a few storage options, so you can install 6 2.5-inch drives in total, as well as 2 3.5-inch drives on these drive sleds on the back of the motherboard tray as well. Let's get to the fun stuff though, that InfiniRail system. This is the same as the Corsair Frame 4000 that we checked out earlier in the year, and essentially how this works is all the rails for all of the fan mounting on this case are adjustable. So the one at the top has 2 positions to allow for either a 120mm fan or a 140/160mm fan, but I'll talk about fan compatibility in a moment. As well as that, the front brackets for the fans are also adjustable. They have measurements for those positions on the front as well. And you can see here, you can either use these to space them out, or you can use the rails themselves. It just depends on how you want to mount. There's lots of different mounting options here. Because of the design of this case as well, the motherboard tray is completely removable with a couple screws too, which means you can pull your graphics card out and then remove the motherboard from the other side of the case if you really wanted to change something without pulling the whole system apart. I kind of like this. As well as that, there's some screws holding in the PSU shroud, and the entire top of the PSU shroud can also be removed. As for motherboard support, the 5000D supports motherboards from ITX all the way up to eATX. And as you can see here, I'm using an ATX board, no back connector board here, but it does support back connector motherboards if you really wanted to do that. As for the specs here, I'm using the MSI MPG X870E Carbon Wi-Fi and a 9950 X3D. Absolutely beastie specs. As I've already mentioned, there's 4 pre-installed fans. There's 3 140mm fans at the front of the case. However, as for fan and radiator compatibility, quite obviously, 3 140s at the front. You can also do a 360mm liquid cooler or radiator at the front of the case. At the rear of the case, again, a single pre-installed 140mm fan. This is where the case gets a little bit more interesting as well. You can see here that I completely rookie maneuvered this because I wasn't paying attention. These fans are reverse pitch, but you can do up to 4 120mm fans on the bottom of the case. Not just 2, 4. As I showed previously, there is this removable panel here, and the case does include another bracket. This bracket will allow you to install up to 3 140mm fans on the side of the case, or up to a 360mm radiator. Going back to that InfiniRail that I mentioned earlier, this is where the case gets really interesting. Well, for me at least. At the top of the Frame 5000D, you could install up to a 420mm liquid cooler. Installing a power supply is kind of nice because you only need to use 2 screws in reality, and Corsair knows this, so they put 2 captive thumb screws in 2 of the standard offset positions for an ATX power supply. You can drop it in and tighten up those captive thumb screws, so you don't need to use a screwdriver. How good's that? Tool free, baby. As for GPU support, the Frame 5000D will support GPUs up to 450mm in length. Yeah, basically the entire internal cavity can be used for a graphics card. Not only that, because this is a modular frame-based case, the rear slot covers can be removed in a single piece, and then you can rotate them to allow for vertical GPU support. There's also another included bracket to aid with this as well. With saying that, there's also a GPU support bracket that is built in to the case as well. It's got a thumb screw that you can loosen, and then you can put it into position, then you tighten it and it locks it into place. Finally, cable management. You can see I didn't really try here, but I used the included Velcro tie downs for everything. Definitely not my best cable management job, but I don't care. It's perfectly fine. Put the side panel on, you'll never look at it again. Speaking of putting panels on, let's do that. All right, let's take a look at the thermals with the Corsair Frame 5000. What we're seeing is the obvious. We have a 420mm liquid cooler. The thermals here are phenomenal. Even with a CPU like the 9950X3D, this cooler manages to easily keep it all in check. And the thermals for the GPU are really good too, because we've got 2 fans blasting fresh enough air right into the GPU. Now, if you were to remove the plastic backing for this panel here, the airflow would be even better. In fact, go and check out KitGuru's airflow video on the 5000, because then you can get a little bit more info on different airflow paths. But I'll link that down below. Shout out to Leo, you're a legend. But let's talk about what I think about the 5000, because I've got some thoughts. First of all, if I wanted to compare this directly with its direct competitor, which is the Cooler MasterFrame 600 that we checked out a couple days ago, but it doesn't matter, YouTube, it's a time machine, you know how it works. This one, in my opinion, is a better approach to it, because less choice on this occasion is the better choice here. Now, while it's not as customizable, it does give you the option to mount everything that you're really going to need with, let's say, the 420mm liquid cooler that I installed in here, as well as removing that side plate. As I've already mentioned, you can use another 360mm bracket on the side. You can put the screen there. There's also an optional panel where you can put that Xenon Edge screen in. I do have the Xenon Edge, mind you, but the only reason why I didn't use it is because I really wanted to have it mounted here for the video because it looked really cool, but we're going to use it for something else. Anyway, this to me seems like a better DIY approach for a modular frame-based case, because like I said, less choice is better, but you still have the adjustability to install almost any cooler configuration you like, especially if you're doing custom liquid cooling. The options here are pretty, you can do whatever you want with it. And if you really wanted to, you could 3D print stuff for this case too. So the Frame 5000 is, I think, the best balance of a frame case. The only thing for me personally is, and I have to bring my own opinion in, it's just a bit big. Like these cases. I thought we were kind of getting away from having massive cases like this, but Nvidia has to come along and make giant GPUs, so we have to accommodate them somehow. Other than that, I really don't have any notes on the case at all. I think it's a perfectly adequate case. I gotta admit, I did make one boo-boo with this build, and it's something I noticed as I was beginning thermal testing. I didn't realize that the fans that I'd picked out for the bottom were reverse pitch fans, so I had them mounted like exhaust out the bottom, and then I was like, oh, hang on, this looks weird, and it turns out they were reverse pitch, because sometimes like I'm an idiot, so the shots through me like talking about the case, the fans are backwards, but through the B-roll and all the fun stuff where it actually matters with all the testing, the fans are the correct way around. So I know someone will say something about it with the thermal results, but you'll see the GPU thermals in this are insanely good. In fact, this case, I think it's actually pretty good. I like it, it's just a bit too big. I would say if you were to pick one of these frame cases from Corsair, the 4000's my pick because it's smaller.
But you're a guy that likes smaller cases.
Yeah, but I don't need a 420mm liquid cooler. All right, I'm done here. Let us know your thoughts on the Corsair Frame 5000. Like I said, I like it. I don't really have any notes for Corsair. I think they've done an adequate job on this case. It's probably the perfect case for most people. If you've got space for it, yeah, there's nothing really wrong with it. It'll tick all the boxes. It's got all the modularity you could probably ever want. You can pull the motherboard out without pulling the whole system apart, which is kind of cool. And yeah, I like it. I like it. And if you don't like it, that's also fine too.